I've got a Norelco 3900 series razor here today. This is what the box looks like. I bought this about 7 months ago on Amazon, and I would say within the first 2, maybe 3 months of using it, I had my first issue, and I couldn't understand what the issue was, but it went away. And then about 2 weeks ago, the issue came back, and I was not able to resolve the issue. When you try to turn on the razor, it blinks 4 times. Do it again. And that's all it does. I've been using Norelco razors for at least 40 years now, and I've never had an issue with a razor before from them. They've always worked great, and the main reason I do replace them is the heads wear out or the battery just doesn't hold the charge anymore. This is the first Norelco razor that I've purchased from them that is no longer run directly off of 120 volts. It now comes with a new charging dock that uses a USB cable. So they actually do not give you the charging brick anymore. They expect you to use a standard USB charging device, which I like because my bathroom has receptacles in it with the built-in USB connectors, which makes the overall cabling a lot more friendly to work with. So I don't know if it's because this is probably one of their earlier or first razors that uses a lithium battery, or most of their older razors used a nickel metal hydride battery. But since I called them up, they were very good on the phone. I really was impressed with their support. With just a few questions, they determined the razor was bad and they're going to ship me a new one. They did. I got it in 2 days, so I was very happy. And they send you a whole new razor. They just don't send you the body and expect you to replace the blades or anything. So this is the old razor. They don't want it back. So I'm going to take it apart today, and we're going to see what's wrong with it. I don't think it's a dead battery because all 3 lights are coming on. When you have a working unit, just 1 light shows up if it's a low charge, 2 for a medium charge, and 3 is a full charge. So I don't know what this 4 blinking thing means. Tech support at Norelco didn't know either. But since they don't want it back, I'm going to take it apart and we're going to see what goes on with this razor today. Alright, so the first step I found in taking this apart is you need a Torx bit, a T7. There's a screw right here. Once you take that screw out, it's a little tricky. It's the only thing that you need to take this off, but it's pretty hard to get this back off. I used one of these cell phone tools that has a very slim edge, and I worked it around the edge and just pried it off. And this is what we're looking at right now. So now I'll have to figure out the second step on how to get to the batteries. I do want to put a voltmeter on the battery first and see what kind of voltages it's putting out. Alright, so once I got the back off, I'm a little confused on how to go any further, but I did notice there's 2 Torx bits inside the shaver unit when you remove the head. So I'm going to try to take these 2 screws off first to see if that's going to help me get this back assembly off more easily. Alright, so removing those 2 screws, this thing just pops off, and now we see more of the internals here, but doesn't really seem to... Oh, yes it does. That's it. So now we can get the whole front of the razor off. So far this is pretty simple in taking this apart. So let me see how far we have to go now to get to the battery. It looks like you don't need screws here. You're just going to pull these tongues up. Might need a screwdriver to help pry them off, but I think if we can get this clear plastic piece off, then we'll see more of the internals to the razor. Alright, it takes a little bit of work to undo all those tongues because there's 4 of them on each side. So now that we're going to pull this off, this little mechanism fell out. This seems to be just a diffuser for the LED to see there's multiple LEDs on this board here. You can see them here. So this is just the diffuser so that it shows those 3 LEDs on this front panel. Alright, so we still don't have the battery, or a way to get to the battery. That's going to be underneath this board, and there's again more of these plastic tongues, and actually you don't have to pop those tongues off. The second I put a little pressure on the circuit board, the whole thing comes out. And here we go. So it's a single cell lithium ion battery, 3.6 volts. So let me get a voltmeter on this, and let's see what kind of voltage this battery is putting out. Because again, this Razor is about 7 months old, so I'm a little surprised if the battery would be bad after that short amount of time. Okay, so I put a voltmeter on the battery and it's reading 3.7 volts. So as I suspected, I don't think the battery's bad, but what I can do is I can hook up a power supply, a variable power supply, and put in 3.7 volts to see if the battery is really the problem. But at this point, I suspect it's not the battery, that there's something else going on with this Razor that has made it cause those lights to blink in that pattern. Here is the switch that is turning this Razor on and off. It's a very small switch, and if you press that little black dimple in, that's what makes those lights blink. Okay, what I've decided to do is I was looking inside here, and there's the motor. You see that black and red wire? It's going to the motor inside the unit there. And these wires are these big solder bumps here and here. So what I'm going to do right now is I have a power supply, and I've set it to 3 volts just to keep it low, to around probably what the lithium battery is providing to the motor. And as you can see, the red lead is over here, the black lead is over here. So I'm just going to put voltage on there temporarily. I don't know if you can hear it and see it, but it's spinning the motors. It's spinning the Razor. So the motor is good. It's not a motor issue. There's something else going on that's causing this Razor to not work correctly. I still don't think it's the battery, but I'll have to find an easy way to disconnect it. The battery is soldered in, so it's not an easy thing to disconnect. But that's probably going to be my next step, to try to figure out what's wrong with this thing. So something dawned on me to try, and I decided to try this because I just was starting to get suspicious. The one thing that we don't have here is a true way to reset this device. While editing the video, I noticed there is a RST print on the board, and I'm thinking that RST stands for reset, and there's also a G and D, which is ground. I'm thinking that by shorting the ground to the RST, that might be a reset. There's no way to know for sure if they mean RST is reset, but I think it could be. It's possible it could throw a spark or something, so it would be something to be cautious about if you want to try it. But I know if it locks up again, I'm going to take it apart and I'm going to short the RST to the ground to see what happens. There's no way to easily pull the power from the circuit board. The circuit board is technically always getting power because the battery is connected to it and there's no real physical on-off switch. So what I did was using a screwdriver, I broke the tab on the battery so that it now removes all the voltage from the circuit board. Now I'm going to put the battery back in. I'm going to just hold it with my finger. We're going to find that little switch. And what do you know? It spins. The 3 LEDs are on. They eventually go off while you're shaving. But as you can see here, it's spinning. Somehow, this thing got locked up. It's literally like a computer that needs a reboot, but there's no physical reset on this thing. Now, support did have me hold in the power button for 30 seconds. We did try that, and that did not resolve the problem. But apparently, this thing is like a computer. It needs a stupid reset. Go figure. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a little solder where I broke the tab on this battery off. I'm going to put this thing back together and see how it works. But I'm going to be really dumbfounded if this whole thing boils down to that this thing was just locked up, that it's got some sort of a software problem on that board. Because that's going to cost Norelco a lot of money if these things are locking up, because all they need is a simple way to pull the power from the board. And I'm wondering if there's a jumper that we could jump to temporarily drain this down to nothing without actually having to break off the tab on the battery. That would be another option. Alright, so I put it back together and I decided I'm not going to close it up yet. It's still working fine. I soldered the battery tab back on and it's working. LEDs look normal. This is the power cord that you use. And here's an interesting little tidbit that I don't understand either. On prior Norelco Razors, if your battery was not charged, you could still run your razor off the power cord. And that did not work with this razor. When this was doing that 4 blinking thing, even with the power cord on, I could not run the razor, so I wasn't able to shave. So now, with this power cord plugged in, look what happens when we press the button. It blinks 4 times. The same problem I was having without the power cord plugged in. If I unplug it, we'll wait for the lights to go out. It works. That's a little weird. I've got to see what the other new razor does. So I'm going to leave this open for a moment. I'm going to put it on a charge. I'm going to leave it on charge for about an hour or two and then check the voltage on the battery, and then I'll come back with more of the video. So I put the razor on charge for about 2 hours and nothing's really changed. I did put the voltmeter on it and it says it's 3.9 volts on the battery. When you turn it on, you know, it's obviously working. I get 3 LEDs on and then they go off. I'm going to close this up. I'm going to start using it. I'll put the new one they sent me on the side and we'll see how this works. And if anything else, goes flaky with it again. When putting this back together, I had a challenge, and I had to take it apart like 4 times before I finally figured it out. Every time I put it back together, I was getting a gap between the back and the front. This piece here would not line up with this piece. It was like an 1/8 of an inch of a 1/16 of an inch of a gap there. The rest of it was fine. It would line up perfectly, but this final little piece here would not go together. It turns out it has to do with these 2 little things here. This guy and this guy. What you want to do is you want to put this in first, and you've got to make sure you get it so that those silver colored things are on the top of the plastic. Every time I was putting it in, it would end up being on top of it, and it's acting like a spring then. So you've got to get it so that those 2 grayish silverish pieces of plastic are on top. If they're not on top, it's not going to close correctly. So I think I've got it in. Yeah, there's no, the way you know, put a lot of pressure on it with your thumbs here. Hold the support in your back with your index fingers and push. If you get a springy feeling, you don't have it lined up right. So this should now close okay. Let's see if we can do this on the camera. And oh yeah, see, it's a nice tight fit. It doesn't fight me. So that was what that whole kink is. So I decided to run the Razor all day in 5-minute increments and then give it a break and run it some more. And the result is the bottom LED does turn eventually orange to indicate a low battery. So it's good to know that it's not always white. So my problem was not a low battery, because otherwise it would have been in this orange color and only blinking the bottom bar. So it's still a mystery what that really is and why removing the battery from the board resolved the issue. So I'm going to assume it's some sort of a software glitch, and just resetting the voltage was the fix.